Hi, I'm John Hall. I'm the Executive Director for Telos Neurohealth, and we'd like to talk to you today about what some of the benefits are with the technologies and the treatments that we have available. Most people are out there that we see are looking for alternative treatments for their mental health conditions. Many of them have tried therapy, many of them have tried medications, and those have either not worked very well for them, or if they have, they come with side effects that are undesirable, and they'd like to see some other possibilities for treating their depression, their anxiety, PTSD, OCD, migraines, or any other number of mental health conditions. Because essentially what we're working with is the neurology of the brain. Now, for a long time, therapies focused on coping with things that are going on, and medications sometimes get things that are out of balance to be stabilized. What we look at is trying to help the brain function optimally, which comes down to neuromodulation. It's a big fancy word for making sure that our neurons are firing in sync and that we have our brain functioning the way it should be and not kind of in a disorganized pattern or in a way that anything's going too slowly or too quickly and not in the place where it needs to be. There are a lot of technologies out there that aim to do this, and you've probably heard of some of them. A popular one is neurofeedback. What we focus on at Telos Neurohealth is called Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation. And we have a few different protocols of that. And it sounds like a great big word, but essentially we have a personalized repetitive protocol called PrTMS, and we have a standard protocol called rTMS, which is also repetitive. Repetitive in that you have multiple treatment sessions per week, usually 5, and they last about a half hour each. And in those treatment sessions across time, we train your brain to fire at the right speed. And that's done with a low amplitude electromagnetic pulse. Now we're going to talk today about some of those protocols, and this is Cliff. Go ahead and let them know who you are, Cliff.
All right, I'm the lead technician here at Telos Neurohealth, and as John was saying, today we're going to walk through the different modes and protocols of treatment and basically familiarize you with what it looks like, and also answering any possible questions that you may have to make it more comfortable to the public.
Definitely. So some of those are, we're going to show you what a qualitative electroencephalogram looks like, which is essentially a passive assessment where we put on a headset that has 19 different leads that measure your brain activity and essentially look at the processing speed of your neurons and see if they're in the right firing rate. So we're going to demonstrate that. And we're also going to show you what it looks like to get set up for PrTMS and where the electromagnet is placed, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what that process goes like, and then also for our standardized protocol of rTMS. So you can see what each one of these looks like and then answer some questions about what you may experience and what results you can hope to get. Before we do it, you usually fill out a few standardized questionnaires on an iPad, and we also give you a Gatorade so that your brain has sugar so that it can have the fuel it needs to process and get a good read. But the whole process ends up taking about a half an hour. Now that we've done a QEEG, usually takes about 10 minutes to get the headset set up, and we record for 4 minutes, and you just sit there quietly with your eyes closed. You don't feel anything. It's a passive test. The worst part is this, where you have to pull off the sticker, and if you're a guy like me, that might involve some hair, but other than that, it's really a painless, simple assessment. So for the process of PrTMS, or personalized repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, there are 3 aspects. The first is we get that QEEG assessment, which tells us the average firing speed of your neurons, and that runs through a proprietary algorithm from Peak Logic that we then use to generate a prescription, which is approved by our psychiatrist, Dr. Palmer. And we take that psychiatrist and our technicians enter it into this machine, and it sets a particular amplitude, and then we place the coil in several locations on the head and start the magnetic pulse to train those neurons to fire at the right speed. One of the biggest questions people have is, what does it feel like? Well, one thing I like to do is have people come in and they can put their hand here so they can feel it. And you just turn it on and you can hear that it makes a clicking sound. And it's very mild. No big deal. And that clicking sound goes on and off in a series of pulses at each location, from anywhere from 2 to 8 minutes at a time, and the whole process takes about 30 to 35 minutes. We're going to show you today what that's like to set up, and Cliff, our lead technician, is going to show you the placements of where it rests on my head so that you get a feel for what it's like to kind of get reclined and relaxed and have a session of PrTMS. Cliff.
So again, like John was saying, with PrTMS, we have 3 main positions of the treatment. So we first start out at the top of the head, which is the CZ position, and then we move it to the more on top of the forehead, which is the FZ position, and then we move it to the left side of the head, kind of still on top of the forehead range, which is the F3 position. And it will look like this. So I will punch in your personalized protocol into the machine, which I will do for John right now. Awesome. Okay, so we get the protocol from Peak Logic, plug it into the Magmetric Pro, and then we make sure you're very relaxed. So I'll ask John, what can we do to make you more relaxed? I imagine kick your feet up.
Back. Yeah, that'd be great.
How's that?
It's good.
It's good? Yeah. We always make sure that it is sanitized before we place it on top of your head. Then we'll place it on the CZ position, which is about right here.
There are certain sight lines that Cliff is using to ensure that the coil is in the right place on my head, including that the center is right down the center of my nose, and that the center on the sides splits my ears right here. That ensures that the coil is actually in the right location.
And then when he's all ready to go, I will give him a countdown, and I will say, all right, John, we're ready. We will start the treatment in 3, 2, 1.
So what this feels like is somebody slightly touching my head. I can hardly feel it. I just know that it's present. It makes that clicky sound, but it's not very loud. I don't need earplugs or anything like that. And it just clicks for about 30 seconds, and then there's a gap in between for about 10 to 20 seconds. And then it will go on and repeat that train 5 to 10 to 20 times. And then Cliff will move it to the next site, which he will show you now.
The next spot is kind of more top of the forehead range, kind of like so.
Again, Cliff's using the sight lines to ensure it's in the right place. And once it starts pulsing for a train, I close my eyes to ensure that my focus is only on treatment, and I'm just relaxing and allowing myself to be blank. But in between, I have a YouTube video I can look up here on the wall to keep me from being bored, which is what most people are afraid of if they have to sit in a chair for 30 minutes.
All right, so then the third position is the F3 position, which is it's more on top of the forehead, but more to the side, the left side of the head, like this.
Again, Cliff is placing this. It just rests against my head, so we have good contact, but there's no pressure. It's just resting firmly, and the control arm that he locks into place keeps it from moving during treatment. If I do happen to move myself and gets off center, Cliff will be paying attention to that, can pause the treatment and recenter things and restart to make sure that we're delivering the treatment to the right location all the time.
Okay, so now that we've walked you through PrTMS, we're now going to walk you through another mode of treatment, which is the standard rTMS treatment. Now with rTMS, when you come in, we measure your head to find a specific location on your head, which is known as the
dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or DLPFC.
And once we find that spot, we mark it on your personalized cap, and then we place it on your head. And the reason that we have a cap for this mode of treatment versus the PrTMS, where there is no cap, is because this treatment is a little higher in amplitude, so it's there to make it more comfortable for you. So we'll go ahead and put this on John's head.
So when Cliff talks about comfort, as I described in PrTMS, it feels like somebody lightly touching your head with their finger, whereas in rTMS, it's delivered in one location, so we need to create a bigger electromagnetic field, and so it feels more like somebody tapping my head like this. Cliff's making sure this is lined up on my head on certain points related to my nasation here in the front, and back here on the occipital bone in the back of my skull, and that way each time the cap is placed, it's in the precise location it was in when we determined where my DLPFC is.
So here, again, we measure just to make sure that it is in the right place. We'll put in the standard TMS protocol into the machine. So here I'm putting the paddle on the marked spot for the treatment, and it will stay there for the course of the whole treatment. Same process as the last one. You punch in the amplitude and then we hit start and go from there.
So for rTMS, while it's a standardized protocol with the same number of pulses in just one location, that location is a little bit different for each person, which is why we take the time to measure it and mark it on the cap. And also to get the ideal amount of power for the treatment with maintaining the most comfort, we measure what is called a motor threshold, and Dr. Palmer does that personally by finding what the maximum amount of power we can use that keeps you from a motor response in your finger, and that's tested on your first treatment session to find out where that is, and that's marked and used throughout your treatment, and that's a special number for you. It's different for each person who does rTMS. As we said before, rTMS has a little more amplitude. If you look at our machines, they go up to a power of 100. PrTMS is usually between 20 and 30 amplitude, and rTMS is usually delivered more around 40 to 50 amplitude, so it is higher, and again, it feels a little different. Feels like somebody actually tapping your head, whereas PrTMS feels like somebody just lightly touching or kind of pushing on your head a little bit, and you almost can't feel PrTMS. And those are the differences between the two protocols.